Hello guys, today I want to talk about a subject which is not discussed in the mainstream media about Iran itself. It is true, America hit Iranian sites and defended much of the Gulf countries. But I love to say that when you have a pain in your tooth, you can take a painkiller. It solves the problem only temporarily, but in order to fix the problem in your tooth, you have to make an appointment with your dentist. So today, my friends, we will dive closer into Tehran and see Iran's one weakness, which is literally its Achilles heel. Look, when we talk about Iran, people tend to think it is a unified country under one banner of Iran or Persia, depends on the period. The best example is when Persians abroad speak about their country. For them, it is a unified nation. And one of the best examples that I hear quite a lot is that people say that the Baluchis, Azerbaijanis, Persians, and Arabs fought together against the Iraqi army in the 1980s. While it is true, we also need to inspect the relations between the Persians and the minorities, which can give us the best leverage against the regime in Tehran. Look, Tehran needs this myth in order to survive because the minorities know their history and each minority has their own languages, culture, beliefs, and history. So let's begin with the people of the region of Sistan Balochistan. The Baloch are Iranian people, but separated from the Persians. There are around 12 million people, most of them are Sunni Muslims, and they live across the greater Balochistan, a massive land which is artificially divided between Pakistan, Iran, and Afghanistan. In 1928, the Shah sent his army to conquer West Balochistan, and the Balochis turned from desert lords to subject of oppression. Until 2003, the Balochi resistance was mostly silent. Then came a 20-year-old, charismatic and militant Abdul Malik Rigi. He built his organization Jondallah, God's Soldiers, and the Baloch struggle became more organized. Unlike the other leaders of his time, Rigi didn't hesitate to tell the truth of the Iranian regime and compared between the Iranian regime and Nazi Germany.
و همه حکومت استبداد مذهبی تقریبا مثل فاشیستا یا مثل نازیان، یعنی یک حکومت کاملا استبدادی را بر علیه مردم ایران تحمیلش گفته و بالخصوص اقلیت‌های قومی مثل بلوچ و کرد و عرب و آذری و ترک و اقلیت‌های مذهبی مثل سنی و مثلا یهودی و مسیحی تمام ایشان در تنگنا قرار.
The first successful attack occurred around December 2005 when the Iranian president Mahmoud Ahmadinejad visited the province of Sistan Balochistan and his convoy was attacked by Jondallah. Ahmadinejad survived, but his bodyguard was killed. 5 years later, fighter jets intercepted a civilian aircraft in which Rigi was. The plane was forced to land and Rigi was taken straight to the hanging. But the hanging turned Rigi to an independence martyr, and many militant and resistance groups still exist within Sistan Balochistan today. But why the Persian regime still so struggles with them? According to analysts, it is nearly impossible to recruit them as double agents, and they cannot be broken during the interrogations. Because if a Baloch betrays his clan, his entire family is either shunned or executed. Another reason is that in the heart of Zahadan in Balochistan, there is the Maki Mosque, which is sometimes regarded as the Vatican of the Sunnis and the living heart of the Sunnis in Iran. There, protests are organized and struggles against the regime. Iranian forces are afraid to enter there because then the city literally burns. And they cannot bomb the Maki from the air because if they will do it, it will be seen as a declaration of a religious war in which will spark a revolt within the Kurds, the Sunni Arabs, and the Pashtuns. And believe me, Iran cannot afford it. During the attacks of the Israeli Air Force in Sistan, Balochistan, the different Baloch organizations increased their attacks on police stations and checkpoints, and the peak was last year when the court of Sistan, Balochistan was attacked with hand grenades. But how dangerous are they? Take a look in the map. The Balochis sit in Iran's most vital naval route, the only bit strip of Iran in the Indian Ocean and the port of Chabahar. It is not very rich in oil, but it is the only naval escape route of Iran in case of a naval siege. So that means, if the Balochis will control Chabahar port, Iranian ships will never leave the Arab Gulf, and the ships loaded with oil and natural gas will not be able to travel freely to the Far East. Now we move to the second minority, which can block a total access to Iran by sea and totally block Iranian oil from reaching the global market. The Ahwazi are Arabic people, and they are between 8 to 10 million people around the area of the Ahwaz province in southwestern Iran. They are Muslims who belong to the Shia sect of Islam, and their Arabic is of the Iraqi dialect. In 1925, the Iranian Shah sent his army to the region, which was supposed to be an independent state called Arabistan, which would have become something like Kuwait of today. But there is one greater problem. Unlike occupied Balochistan, the Ahwazi suffer from strict Persian control for over a century. So any chance of rising up will bring severe crackdown from the regime in Tehran. But why? Because of one reason. Over 80% of Iran's oil is located around the region of the Ahwaz. Now I want to bring to your attention something else. What is logical in the Western mindset is that Iran would share the values of the oil with the Ahwazi Arab. But not only it's not happening, but the Iranians did something else far more terrible. The regime had diverted the rivers which come from the mountains to the direction of Isfahan instead of the natural direction of the Ahwaz area. So for them, the Arabs there can die out of thirst, and because of that, the date trees of the region of Ahwaz have died out. So today, is there any Ahwazi resistance to the Iranian regime? Yeah, there is. There is the Ahwazi Liberal Party. As far as we know, the party is relatively secular and liberal by Middle Eastern standards, and it is considered a patriotic movement of the Arabs in the region. The leader of the party, Mr. Hamid Mutasher, had even declared that the Ahwazi Liberal Party is not only open to cooperate with Israel, but also wish to enter the Abraham Accords as a separate Ahwazi state. Exactly on that same day, joined the Ahwazi Liberation Army to the fight. Not much is known about this organization when it was established, but we know some of its operatives carried out attacks against the Iranian Revolutionary Guards members across the region of Ahwaz. But other organizations, such as the Ahwazi Falcons and the Arab Struggle Movement for the Liberation of Ahwaz, have already recorded history of attacks against Iranian targets. Although the attacks during March and April 2026 were organized by each faction, there is one minority in the Saragos Mountains which Iran is afraid of. Not because it holds resources, but because they were proven to be highly efficient and have brothers in Iraq. The Kurds are around 40 million people, and they are one of the most ancient nations of the Middle East. There is a Kurdish saying, "We have no friends but the mountains." And for more than a century, the Kurds are proven to be the toughest and most efficient fighters who can actually combat Iran. But why is that? Because unlike other minorities which we've talked about, the Kurds fought many wars and won battles against the Islamic State across Iraq and Syria. In 2014, as the Iraqi army collapsed overnight, it was actually the Kurdish Peshmerga who held the line with the help of the Americans. But they didn't just come from the mountains. They fought with tanks, artillery, and mechanized units which were rolling into towns across Iraq. Old T-62s, captured ammunition, armored personal carriers, most of it was stolen from Saddam Hussein's armories. And now, in 2026, that battlefield experience had become their best weapon. In February 2026, the Kurds of Iraq sent an armored unit to the areas of the Western Mountains in Iran. And believe me, Iran knows exactly what that means. That the Kurds who fought in the harshest battles against the Arab tribes and Islamic State forces is now coming to them. And unlike the minorities, which I've talked about, the Kurds, especially in Iraq, receive massive support from another anti-Iranian country, Israel. Since the 1960s, Israel had been in close ties with the Peshmerga forces in Iraqi Kurdistan ever since the Ba'ath regime took over in Iraq. So, traditionally, Israel is supporting the Kurds by training, intelligence, and counterterrorism. And I read a report that in March 2026, a Kurdish armored force began deployment from Iraq to Iran. And the Americans and the Israelis were about to give them the order to strike. But according to Israeli analysts, that order was unfortunately revoked after the Turkish president Erdogan pressured Trump to avoid it, because if the Kurds will win against Iran, Turkey will be their next target after a century-long oppression. But there is one minority from which Iran cannot ignore because of the population size and the threat from the north. In Iran's northwest, over what used to be the largest lake in the Middle East, live between 15 to 25 million ethnic Azerbaijani. A Turkic minority so large that some estimates put them above the Persians themselves by percentage of the population. Lake Urmia, which for centuries fed the farms and water of Tabriz and Urmia, had been dried out because of over 40 dams built upstream, diverting its rivers towards central Iran and its agricultural center. The lake has now completely dried up, leaving behind a wasteland of salt that storms carried to the lungs of the very people it once fed, fueling cancer, diseases, and forced migration. Activists call it for what it really looks like, an oppression. And yet, unlike the Kurds or the Balochis, the Azerbaijanis have no Peshmerga of their own, no tanks, nor organized militias waiting for them in the mountains. Their resistance is in the bazaar, the protests in the streets of Tabriz, and their slogan, of freedom, justice, and national government met with mass arrests and executions. But Tehran's fear isn't about what's happening inside its borders. It's what's sitting just across them. Because on the other side of that border lies the Republic of Azerbaijan, fully armed, wealthy, closely tied to Israel, that has never abandoned its idea of southern Azerbaijan reunification. And when Iranian drones struck the Azerbaijani enclave of Nakhchivan in March 2026, Baku evacuated its diplomats from Tehran, closed its airspace, and vowed a response. For now, Azerbaijan is playing it very carefully, keeping its distance from the war. But if Baku ever decides that its patience has run out, Iran won't be facing a militia in the mountains. It will be facing an army, waiting with knives in their hands to liberate Tabriz and their brothers in the south. So, how is it possible to break Iran? Here is how. Look, when we put those four minorities together, Azerbaijanis, Kurds, Ahwazi Arabs, and Balochis, you get something Tehran cannot even afford to imagine. The Strait of Hormuz, the oil fields in the Ahwaz, the mountains in the west, and Azerbaijan, all will be in the hands of people who owe the regime nothing. So ask yourself, will the Balochis give Tehran parts of the Strait of Hormuz? Will the Ahwazi hand over shares of the oil that built the Islamic Republic? No, the Persians will get a middle finger instead, because those minorities are fighting for their own turf. And if there are problems, they will solve it in their own parliaments, with one possible exception. The Azerbaijanis can reunify with their brothers in the north of the country. Take away Hormuz, and Iran's navy is trapped in the Gulf. Take away Arabistan, and Iran has no oil to sell. Take away Kurdistan, and Iran has no mountains to defend. Take away the Azerbaijanis, and Iran loses a quarter of its population to an hostile neighbor. This isn't a protest movement. This is the map of how Iran can actually break. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see you all in a new Balochistan, a new Azerbaijan, Kurdistan, and a reunified Azerbaijan.